Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
Go to the U.S. for a winter vacation. In this economy, Canadian snowbirds are looking to fly back north. The cratering Canadian dollar, which has dropped below 69 cents, which, if you're buying American currency, that's $1.50 with all of the fees and exchange rate built in. Combined with rising American property and medical insurance, a lot of Canadian snowbirds are just finding it is too expensive right now to go and live in the United States for the winter. This all has many longtime Canadian property owners in Florida and other southern states looking to sell. Local American real estate agents haven't seen this kind of sales activity by Canadians in more than a decade. And travelers are also reconsidering short-term trips to the U.S., instead looking at other foreign destinations. I'm Mike Eppel, and today on the In This Economy pod, I am talking to Wayne Smith, the Director, Institute of Hospitality and Tourism Research at the Ted Rogers School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, Toronto Metropolitan University. Professor Smith, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here with you this morning.
It appears that Canadians are not too happy with the 69-cent dollar, nor should they be. But that is the reality that a lot of people who have been going to Florida and sunnier climes every winter are dealing with. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen a Canadian dollar this low, but are you surprised to see that so many people are already looking to bail from things that they've been doing for so many years? The numbers indicate that something like a quarter of all foreign sales right now in Florida are Canadians looking to get out of the state.
Yeah, it's really interesting right now because it's a combination of different things. You have the dollar being weak and the Canadian economy not being overly strong. You combine that with down in Florida, the insurance rates going way high because the insurance companies have been pulling out of Florida. So getting insurance is nearly impossible. And if you get it, it's really, really expensive. And then you add the third thing is the political climate, whether it be the Republican offices down there. And now with all the crackdown on immigration and the ideas of that, it just creates an environment where you wouldn't want to own property in Florida.
But is it a situation where at the end of the day, people are going to get in and around, well, if they're not already going, winter, regardless of cost, or does it just literally come back to the fact people just can't afford it? They may have bought years ago and maybe actually looking at a pretty good rate of return on that investment, but their monthly costs have just gone up so darn much.
Well, the Florida real estate market is taking a nosedive quickly right now. And it's, like I said, a lot of it has to do with the insurance prices. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, the economy is not nearly as strong as one would think it is. But you also look at other markets are starting to open up for Canadians. So, for example, a lot of Canadians are now moving to Mexico instead, where the costs are slightly cheaper. The government's a little more favorable towards expats kind of living there. The visa restrictions are a little bit lighter. You're starting to see other markets starting to invite Canadians to them as well.
Have we actually seen any of the data related to tours and travel statistics this winter? Our numbers, for example, for cruise lines or going to the Dominican or someplace other than to the United States, have those been on the rise?
Yeah, we definitely, the cruise industry and the Caribbean in particular have been noting upticks from the Canadian marketplace. So a lot of that has to do with, once again, a lot of Canadians with the dollar being weak compared to the US dollar. And you add in the fact that you have a political entity that a lot of people aren't necessarily comfortable traveling in. And all of a sudden, people are making alternative arrangements to go to some of the other destinations.
And your dollar goes further, right? Depending on the exchange rate.
The dollar goes further. You don't have the hassle of traveling to the U.S. And you also, they're getting stricter and stricter with visas and going over the border, and it creates that anxiety, not those issues. So every time you put up a barrier to someone coming to visit you, chances are they may choose someone else.
Could this also, in turn, though, be good for, and we don't think of Canada as a winter travel destination necessarily, but people just staying home and traveling within our borders, whether it's over the next couple of months or even for the year, and then subsequently seeing more people visiting here this summer.
Well, Destination Toronto just released a report that basically said our domestic tourism is the strongest entity that we have right now. So we're seeing large numbers of domestic tourists visiting Toronto. And, I would argue from looking at the numbers, domestic tourism has been very strong this year across the board.
Has there been a cottage industry like growing now with, okay, if the U.S. isn't where I want to go, but I don't know enough about Mexico or other places in Central America for what have you, or to sunnier destinations. Aside from going on the internet, are there, tour operators that are really springing up now to attract that market?
Oh, the tour operator market is absolutely exploding once again. So if you think about it, a lot of people in the online world are getting more and more nervous because they don't know if they can believe online reviews. They don't know how they feel about booking when you don't have a travel agent, you don't have that human you can call. It's kind of like having a personal shopper. So the idea of the travel agent is actually coming back, and it's coming back in a very strong way because you're going to get that personal advice. And if something happens, your flight gets canceled or whatever, all of a sudden you have a real person to talk to and a real person who's going to help you out.
Isn't that something? I mean, I would have thought, and it looked like it was going this direction, that the era of the travel agent had come to an end. But turns out people actually want to talk to another human being to be perhaps reassured about their travel plans.
Well, when your flight's canceled or you're having illness or all the things that can go wrong in travel, you don't want to be waiting on hold with someone, or you don't want to be directed from person to person to person. You want to be able to pick up the phone, make one phone call, and have it handled for you, and know that person's handling it for you. And it gives it quite a bit of assurance to the guest because they know that it's kind of like, if you think about it, travel agents are almost like the ultimate insurance policy to have.
And obviously the dollar plays a massive role in this. But if you're telling me that there are properties that are more affordable to buy in the United States right now because of the buyer's market and all these people looking to sell, when does it become perhaps an opportunity to look there? If that's been something that you have been thinking about, or does it just come back to the fact, look, I can't do anything right now because the dollar, again, it's 69 cents and dropping, and who knows how far it's going to go?
Well, the problem is not necessarily just the dollar. You're adding in the other factors related to immigration, related to banking, related to insurance. All those other industries down there are tightening up. So anyone foreign buying right now, it's very difficult to do, and it's not easy to navigate at the moment.
And the other interesting thing, we just actually traveled to the United States, and I found that you go into a grocery store, and for example, a case of Coke on the shelf in a regular grocery store was $7.99 American. Here in Canada, it's $7.99 Canadian. So if you're shopping for food, for example, or going out to eat or doing anything, it is really expensive. There are no bargains to be had. And you used to think that, you go to the States and they've got lower taxes, all this, it offsets it. Not so much anymore, right?
No, well, if you take a look at a lot of the states, especially like, for example, the no income state tax states. So Texas and Florida and Arizona, well, they have to make up the tax revenue somewhere else. So they make up the tax revenues in higher property taxes. They make up the tax revenues in higher fees for everything. They make it up in not only do you pay state sales tax, but then you also then pay a municipal sales tax on top of that. So they're making up the revenue one way or another because they have to pay for the entities in the state. So what ends up happening is when you go down there, the sticker price on a lot of things. So if you're buying a property tax is a lot more expensive than, for example, even in Canada, because especially in those state income tax places, because that's the way they raise revenues.
Have you seen, or do you expect places like Florida to start ad campaigns to say, hey, we're still here, come visit?
Well, I think you're going to see them having to get very aggressive. Disney in particular has really seen a rise, but the price sensitivity of the market is starting to hit hard. And these are the things that you're starting to see where the less popular places, you're starting to see already deals starting to be offered and more trying to get more people, especially in less demand periods. It'll be interesting to see how they react and how the market will react. I honestly think you're going to see for the next few years a shift to some other markets. So, for example, I think you're going to see more Canadians travel to Europe, for example. I think you're going to see more Canadians traveling to destinations in the Caribbean, such as Cuba or the Dominican Republic. I think those markets are going to become very, very attractive. And if I was one of those markets, those will be the ones, if I was them, I'd be pushing to the Canadian market right now aggressively.
Leave it there. Thank you very much for doing this today. Good talking to you.
No problem. Thank you.
That's Professor Wayne Smith, the Director, Institute of Hospitality and Tourism Research at the Ted Rogers School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, Toronto Metropolitan University. My name is Mike Eppel. Thank you for listening to In This Economy. If you have any feedback, questions, or for a story idea, you can email me at mike.eppel, that's E-P-P-E-L, at rci.rogers.com. And a reminder, you can get all of your favorite podcasts on the Seeker app, that's S-E-E-K-R.